What is up, everybody? Are you ready to play some Fort Condor? Hold on a second. Did I do it? I don't know what I did. Oh my god, mouse. React. Hold on a second. Technical difficulties, there we go. Alright. Now we've got everything where we need it to be. What's up, everyone? Are you ready to play some Fort Condor? Hope if you hear my chair squeaking like that, I'm really sorry. I sprayed WD-40 on it, promise I did. But we're going to compare the original Fort Condor game from the 1997 release to the Fort Condor board game that is in the Remake Intermission, Yuffie's DLC. So I basically just want to take a look at both of these and say, you know, what are the strengths of each one? What are the weaknesses of each one? And is one better than the other? Or are they pretty equal? And then I'm also going to give some predictions at the end here on what I think they're going to do in part 2. Are they going to continue to have Fort Condor kind of like some of the other like mini card games they had in Final Fantasy VIII and Final Fantasy IX, where, oh hey, you collect these cards as you go throughout the game and you can play them at several different areas, especially towards the end. So are we going to be able to play Fort Condor when we go to Junon? Are we going to be able to play Fort Condor when we go to the Gold Saucer? Or is it even going to be available? So we'll get into that after we talk about Fort Condor OG and the remake board game. And we're going to start right now with the original. So here you can see, right up here, you can see that in the original you've got to choose your characters and place them on this map. One thing to keep in mind is that in the original, this is an actual battle scenario. So you can see when the characters pop back up, I'm spending my own gil to hire these characters. Yeah, I've got 4,000 gil. That one was costing 400. And this, you can see the base work for the remakes version, the board game, in which, let me put this over here, get this out of the way, in which you've got 3 main types of attackers or units that you can use. You've got attackers, you've got, in this case they call them shooters, and then you've got defenders. You also get battle intel at the beginning before the scenario starts. So in this case I was told, hey, there's going to be a lot of beasts, and I know that attackers are good against beasts. So another thing that's different from this one and the remake is that each side, you only get to play as, you know, the defenders of Fort Condor, whereas these units that you'll see attacking here in a minute are from Shinra. So you can see here that I'm actually having to control and tell each of these units where to go. My camera's blocking. Let me see if I can turn this off for just a second so that, nope, I cannot do that. Okay, well, I was gonna try. Let me see if I can transition this now. There we go. So you can see on the left side of the screen, there is this tracker that shows how many units you have at the top, which just says side. Then there's enemy number is at the bottom, which right now there are 7. And then it's got the enemy's progress. So that red bar that's going up, that shows how far up the mountain towards Fort Condor they're getting to. And the whole scenario for this Fort Condor minigame is that we've hired real troops to defend Fort Condor and the giant condor that is guarding its egg at the top of the fort. And so we are fighting these weird looking Shinra troops, and if we don't succeed, then we'll actually have to go out as Cloud and the other characters and fight this sort of mini boss fight. And if we get to the end of it, you'll see what I'm talking about. So I might be able to skip towards the end if we don't make it there. But one of these things that I really like, let me get myself back in here. All right, that's cool. And then also you'll see in the bottom right corner there is actually a way to control the speed, although I was playing this on Steam with my keyboard and I could not remember what buttons it was to increase or decrease the speed, so it just stays at those little two squares. So one thing that you'll notice is that it kind of goes slow. But you're also going to see that during this game, I'm moving around constantly. I'm constantly giving orders to these units. And I'm always having to keep an eye on everything that's going on. You can see that I've got traps set up. Unlike in the new one, those kind of traps or sentries, whatever you want to call them, they remain there. They have an HP and they will stay until they are destroyed. Whereas in the remake, if you have like some kind of sentry gun, those sentry guns slowly lose HP regardless. So you can see there tons of monsters going up the hill. There's like these little pterodactyl things. I can't remember what they're called. Hopefully I'll hover over one in a minute and we'll see what it's called. There's a repairer right there. That's something that it really isn't in the new game. And I've commanded that repairer to repair one of my fighters, or I should say heal. I think that was like a localization kind of thing. Like, oh, that repairer is healing my units. So now I've commanded her to go over to another unit that just got out of combat. And I do like that stuff. You know, it's kind of chaotic, even though these guys are moving really slowly, but that slow movement can also kind of build up tension, which may not be attractive to a lot of younger audiences or modern day gamers, but you'll see here in a minute what I'm talking about. There's also a worker, which I've commanded to lay a mine, and so that worker is also a unit that's not in the new version. The workers can attack also, but really their primary job is just to lay a couple of mines around the field. You can see if you look in like the far right, you'll see there it is. There's a mine over there that hopefully we'll see one of the enemies hit soon. So these units, that's it. That's all you get. When you saw at the beginning, and maybe I can skip back to that in a minute if it doesn't go back around to it. These units that you see on the battlefield, plus a couple more traps that don't get unlocked until later in the game when you can come back to Fort Condor and defend it against a new wave of enemies. You can see the boss right there. Your units can attack that boss and defeat it without you ever having to go out and fight for them. But in this particular scenario, that didn't happen. So you see some of my traps are rolling stones. Okay, I think I missed that pterodactyl creature, but you'll see that I've sent my defender after it. And the defenders, just like in the new game, are like the slowest units. And so that pterodactyl is one of the faster moving units. And there's just no way I'm going to be able to keep up with it. So I'm still just trying to win the battle down here in the south, but that thing is just going to make it up to the cabin, in which is going to trigger the mini boss fight. But yeah, when I played this, I played this a couple months ago, and I was expecting to not feel that great about it, expecting after having played Intermission's version of the Fort Condor board game. You can see the warning flashing up there that it's, you know, the pterodactyl creature is getting close. What is that? I think I hovered over it a second ago and I didn't even see it. But I was expecting to kind of feel lackluster, but I didn't feel that way. I felt like there were a lot of strategic choices to make, choices that you can't make in the new board game version of Fort Condor in Intermission. So here we go. Enemy invasion. I do not know what B3 and B1 mean. My God, they're attacking. We're counting on you. And then we go into this combat against this crazy looking creature here. So yeah, that is the original Fort Condor scenario right there, in which you hire real troops to battle against Shinra forces, and then you have to go into this boss battle. If your troops are unsuccessful, or if your strategy is unsuccessful and one of the troops is able to sneak through your forces, or in this case just flank around them. But I thoroughly enjoyed playing Fort Condor in the OG version. At no point did I feel like I was bored. Maybe a little bit at the beginning when the enemies are slowly moving up, and I couldn't figure out how to increase the speed. But I still enjoy this, and while I like what they've done with the board game in the remake, I can safely say that I also enjoy this too, and I hope that maybe we will see some aspects of it in Remake Part 2 if we go to Fort Condor actually, like on the map. So now let's transition over. I think all you're going to see here is just me finishing off this boss. Let me see if I can reverse this video. Yeah, there you go. So you can see the Condor at the top, and then I'll just quickly show you guys again. There's the units we can choose from, and I think I pretty much used all but one type. There's the fighter attacker. I think the fighter was just a generic unit. There's the stoner, catapult, so you can see me setting up the troops there and setting up the traps. And yeah, that's so for those of you who joined in late, that's what that looks like. Leave a comment if you have played the original, or if the new intermission version of Fort Condor, the board game version, is the first one you ever played. And let me know what you think. Let me know if you liked the original better, or if you liked the new board game version better. And I'll try to do my best to monitor the chat. And then we'll move on to Fort Condor in Final Fantasy VII Remake Intermission. Had to put Jesse in there. Yep. I'm glad we got to see a lot of these characters from the main game in Yuffie's DLC. So here we go. We're entering the menu. So here you can see you got your unit select, where you'll select the 6 or so units that you're going to play the entire board game with, and you get to see your enemy board game configuration as well, see what kind of units they have. So some immediate things about this one: you've absolutely got more stats to look at, you've got more units to choose from, but you've also still got that base triangle there. If you look in the very top center where it's saying, I think, get ready, there's a timer. So you've got the symbols: the sword, the red sword, the green bow and arrow, and then the blue shield. That represents the attacker, the defender, and the shooter, or the ranged personnel. So that carried over from the original, and I really enjoyed that aspect. And then each of these different troopers or units that you can choose from falls under one of those categories, and of course it's that triangle where the attacker is better against the ranged units, the ranged units are better against the defenders, and the defenders are better against the attackers. So that's what that stands for. You've got magic in the intermission version, which is something that you do not have in the OG, but once again, in the OG you've got traps, and in this new one, the closest thing to traps you have are the sentry guns, which I think you could see earlier on there. And did we just freeze there? Hope we didn't freeze. I'll keep looking at that. I don't know what happened there. All right. Maybe I paused it in the game or something. I didn't realize it. So yeah, I'm using magic right there to heal a unit. So that's one cool aspect of this game. That's a choice that you get to make. And then when it comes to board gaming, I'm all about choice. Like, how much choice is there over luck? And so choosing the right kind of board with the right kind of magic to counter your foe, that's also something interesting. Choosing when to use that magic, that's something interesting too. This one is certainly a lot more hectic, especially compared to the OG version, and of course it is definitely more stuff is going on. It's faster paced, but the only thing there is, when you drop units into play, that's it. That was the choice you made. You basically chose the unit, and then you chose where to drop them, and they're autonomous from there. So that is one thing that I guess they had to do because of the fast pace of the game itself. And I guess if they gave you the ability to control each unit individually, and those units wouldn't do anything unless you controlled them like in the OG, then you simply wouldn't be able to have this many units at this fast of a pace. So I think there we've got, some ups and downs compared to the original and then the new version. Let me click. Yeah, it gets like frozen. It won't tell me how far into the video we are. So there's the beginning. And one thing I do like about the board game, it harkens back to the original, is that the Condor in the middle, or the fort in the middle, whatever you want to call it, features the Condor guarding its egg, which is, it's waiting to hatch on top of the Fort Condor reactor. So yeah, in the original, I believe Fort Condor is built on top of a Mako reactor, and the whole thing is Shinra wants it back, and these people are basically, the people who live at the fort are guarding the Condor and its egg against the Shinra troops. And so that's why you see these birds on top of these little miniature reactors. That's the whole thing about it back then. So yeah, give me a comment. Let me know what you think of what they did with the new one. If you like the way it goes, if you like the fast pace, if you prefer the way that combat works in this one over the OG. It certainly looks more beautiful, and I like the camera angle. If they do any kind of special scenario in part 2 that involves the real life, quote-unquote, Fort Condor, then I hope they have some kind of view like this. But I also hope that they have a few things harken back to the original, where it is kind of like a real-time strategy in that you have to move these units around this battlefield, instead of it just kind of being, hey, I drop them here, and now they just go do their own thing. They choose their own targets. Whether I like it or not, they don't run. There's no healer unit, there's no cleric type unit. And but yeah, I do think that they will carry this over. I mean, look at all the work that they put into this. I think they're going to add new units to it in Remake Part 2. I think we're going to be able to play the game at multiple stops along the way. I think we're going to start from scratch, or maybe, Yuffie will, whenever she joins the party, she'll have carried her Fort Condor pieces along with her. So there's that. I think that we will go to Fort Condor, and before we get into that, I'll just give my final thoughts on the OG versus the new board game. First off, I like both of them. I like both of them for slightly different reasons. The original, because it's much more of this real-time strategy in that you command the troops. You choose their placement at the beginning of battle, and once the battle starts, now it's up to you to look at where the enemy soldiers are coming in and react to that. And so all the choices that you get to make in the original versus one thing I do like in this one is, yeah, it's a little chaotic. Sometimes it can feel overwhelming, but it's also kind of fun in that way. And especially since this is, essentially a board game. I like that. I like that we're playing this, quote unquote board game with these autonomous moving pieces in this video game. That's something I don't know that they have done in Final Fantasy before. Now, I haven't played Final Fantasy 15 yet. That is on my list of things to do, but I don't remember them having any kind of mini game like a board game inside of a video game. Not the first video game to ever do it. Assassin's Creed had old-fashioned games that you could play as, side things. I think it was Assassin's Creed. You could play Nine Man's Morris, I want to say it was called. Let me know in a comment if you know what I was talking about, if it was Assassin's Creed or not. It was the one, I want to say it's Assassin's Creed 3. But, yeah, I think it's really cool that they have a board game like this. And I think, if the right publisher wanted to take it on, I think they could make a physical, real-life board game of Fort Condor that we could purchase and play on a tabletop. I mean, if they made that, yeah, I don't care whether it would be a good game or a bad game. I would get it just to own it. I would get a Fort Condor board game just to own it and have a rule set that says, hey, like these helicopters can move like this, and the ground soldiers, the shock troopers, they can move like this, or they have a movement speed of 2, whereas the attackers have movement speed of 3, or something like that. The ranged ones versus the melee attackers, have all those in the game rules. So now, let's go into, I'll leave it on here because I know that we haven't seen all the footage yet. Let's go into my predictions. Oh, okay, now it's started over. I'm going to go into my predictions on what we're going to see in Remake Part 2. How Fort Condor is going to be incorporated into the game. I do think that we are going to physically go to Fort Condor after the Mithril Mines. So for those of you who don't know, and this could be a little bit spoilery, so I don't think it's going to be that big of a spoiler. I'm really just going to go through the different locations you go to in between Midgar and arriving at Fort Condor. So in the OG, you go to Calm, which we've seen at the end of the Yuffie DLC. We see the party arriving at Calm, which tells us a lot about where the game is going to start off. From there, we go to the Chocobo Ranch, where you guys saw Chocobo Bill. Chocobo Bill is the guy that gave them the ride to Calm in the back of his truck that had the Chocobos in it. So we meet him there at the Chocobo Ranch. And the reason we go there is because we have to get through the swamps, and the Midgar Zalum, or Zalam, or Zalum, something like that, patrols the swamps, and the only way to get past it fast enough is by riding a Chocobo. So we've got to capture a wild Chocobo, get through the swamp, which I think is going to be an insane event. We then go through the Mithril Mines, where we have a run-in with the Turks. Once we get out the other side of the Mithril Mines, that is where we enter into this part of the world map that has Junon, the entrance to the Mithril Mines, and then in between that, and sort of to the south, is the actual Fort Condor itself. You can completely pass it by. It is a side quest in the beginning, and so you never have to play the OG one, I'll switch back to it. You never have to play this during this part of the original game. But because of the amount of assets that they have to create for Fort Condor, I don't think that Fort Condor is going to be a side mission. Let's see. I'm going to open my widgets here. Okay, I'm getting an error, but it looks like everything is still good. We're going to keep going. Be sure and comment if you are having any trouble hearing me or if the video's frozen or anything. So I'm going to keep going. But we've already seen how the remake did things, and how, you know, a lot of the side content or a lot of the stuff that is mandatory in this game was kind of like just little tidbits in the last one. So the amount of effort they're going to put into creating this new Fort Condor, they're going to make it a part of the game, whether it involves us just trying to get to Junon. Maybe we're misled into believing that Sephiroth has gone there because we're basically on the trail for Sephiroth. All right, stream health is excellent again. Great. And you know, it might involve Yuffie. Yuffie might lead us there for one reason or another. We might chase her there, which, seeing the end of Yuffie's DLC really changes the way that I perceive how they're going to treat Yuffie in the new one. Once again, you know, in the OG, Yuffie is just an optional character that you can get as early as Junon. And I would say that when she meets up with our party, however she does it, she's still going to be the angsty teenager who's just kind of immature and out there. But I'm wondering if she's going to willingly just want to join the party right off the bat and not try to steal anything from us. You know, we're not going to fight her because she has laid eyes on Barrett and Tifa, and maybe she will remember what they look like. Kind of hard to forget a guy with a gun on his arm. But I think we are going to go to Fort Condor. And I think if we go to Fort Condor, some kind of Shinra versus the mercenaries battle is going to take place. And I wonder if it's going to... I don't think it will be like the board game in Intermission. It's going to be something completely different. I'm really hoping that we get a real-time strategy in which you control the troops on the field, and maybe even like Cloud, Tifa, Barrett, and the others will be movable units on the field as well. It's asking a lot, but I mean, you can see they did it in the original game. It's right there. It's rudimentary, but it's right there. So yeah, if you've got any thoughts on what you think Fort Condor is going to be like in Remake Part 2, be sure and leave a comment. I'll go ahead and go into my closing remarks. Just to reiterate, I really enjoyed the original Fort Condor. I also enjoy the board game remake in Intermission, but I want to see some more of these aspects of the original come through in the real life Fort Condor area when we get there. So yeah, leave a comment, let me know what your predictions are for Remake Part 2, and I hope you'll check out some more videos on the Felred Express. I've got more talks which you'll be able to see up here after this video is taped and I've put up the end screen. And yeah, more discussions to come on Final Fantasy VII Remake, Intermission, and Part 2. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will check you next time.